what a pastor does and who a pastor is and what I did and who I was. You know, there were songs we would sing. I didn't know lyrics. I don't know hymns. I didn't grow up in Sunday school. I didn't know any of that stuff. So my formation was different, you know, and I always felt like I was disqualified from ministry because of, you know, how I was raised. And then you spend enough time reading about Paul. You understand the road to Damascus and how God will choose anyone to be their instrument.
Yeah.
Right. You find all these different stories of someone who has to step out of their comfort zone and to do something that maybe they're not gifted at doing, but God chose them. Right. So Gideon, you're going to be the one to leverage unconventional warfare against the Midianites. You know what I'm saying? Ezekiel.
How can I do that?
Right. You know, and I'm just, so it was wild. But the more I submitted myself to the process, and my wife and I, we did marriage ministry and newcomers and first, it was new members. We did worship. We did all the things, security. She did children's ministry. Like the longer we submitted ourselves to that process, the more God revealed. And I think that's what's really interesting for me, man. Even though I didn't get this from my earthly parents, it wasn't like God was putting this stuff inside. It wasn't like I was discovering a new thing. It was being revealed. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like that was already there. We just got to clean it off. We got to expose it. And that's been what's really cool, you know. So
I get that. In my master's in coaching, that's what they teach us. They say that we aren't psychologists, we aren't counselors, because the difference between a counselor and a coach is this: a counselor tells people what to do. A coach reveals and unpacks the strengths and the knowledge and the techniques and the things that are already in the person. So we uncover that for them, allow them to walk in what they already possess. So I get that 100%. That's what my training is. But bro, the line that you hit me with, been walking in the world so long that you forget that the word is in you. And that's how we're gonna open this show. I mean, I don't know how else to do it except off that bar. That's almost like a mic drop. Start from the end. But man, this is GodSpeed. I want to welcome each and every one of you out to the show, to this podcast. And if this is your first time, I want to give you a sense of what GodSpeed truly is. And it's where we take full faith and we apply it to real life. And we have conversations and discussions about how that intersection or how that collision looks. And we do it through the form of story. Because what I believe about story is this: when we tell our stories, even though it's unique to us, each step along that way, like each character, each plot twist, like people see themselves in what we're saying. And so the hope and the prayer is that as we are sharing stories with you, you see yourself, but you also see the hope that's on the other side of it as we give examples of how we've walked through it. And we do it through 3 different ways. One, we have conversations about where we were before Christ, how we are now that we're walking with him, and now that he is in us, where do we believe he's pushing us in the future? And we do it through 3 rules: no cussing, no fussing, no politicking. And that's it. So with that, I want to welcome I don't think I've ever called you this before, but I see you as my mentor. I definitely see you as my friend. Used to be co-worker. Really not really co-workers. We were on staff at the same time. Yeah. We were colleagues. But man, my man, Ryan Dunlap, one of the most impressionable people that I know.
I love that.
So starting off with that line, walking in the world so long that you forgot that you can forget that the word is in you. Tell me a little bit about those worldly experiences that you have had. Because bro, I joke with people and I say, man, I've lived a Forrest Gump, like real life Forrest Gump type of life. I've done so many things, from med school to football to UPS to church to Chick-fil-A to like all kind of things, like military, you know. But you rival that, bro. Ooh. You rival that. Like you are a switchblade. No. You're like a Leatherman. So give us Walk us back as far as you want to
Yeah.
some of that worldly exposure that you have. You can even go back to like military upbringing if you want.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's formative, right? So I grew up in a military family. My mother is a rest her soul. She was a retired staff sergeant. My father was a retired master sergeant. So we moved a lot. I think I did the math one day. I think I went to like 9 different elementary schools.
Wow.
So born in Germany, lived across the U.S. Families from the south side of Chicago lived in Texas, South Carolina, Virginia, Atlanta, Tennessee, Georgia, Tennessee. So we were exposed to the world at a very young age. And I think that was good for me, right? Everybody in our ecosystem was different colors, different races, different belief systems. And so as I got older, that was that was kind of taken from me.
Mm.
After my mother retired from the military, about fifth grade, we ended up in Virginia. And Virginia is where I feel like it was the first time I was introduced to the world. Because when you live in a military family, you're kind of in a bubble.
Yeah.
Virginia was the first time I realized I was black because people told me.
Wow.
Right? That's just when people started telling me for the first time, like, oh, you talk white. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was a kid. I tucked my shirts in.
Bro, you tucked your shirts in as a kid?
I tucked my shirts in. My nickname growing up for Little Season was Veins.
Veins?
Because I wore tight pants and they used to say, man, we could see the veins coming.
Not everybody want to wear skinny jeans.
Well, now it's fashionable.
Yeah.
But back then, when everybody was wearing baggy jeans, it was something to tease somebody about.
Like I wanted to tease you on the tight jeans, but the shirt tucked in is another look, bro.
Hey, listen, I felt like it's exactly where I am now. So nothing much has changed.
All right.
I like to keep it clean and collegiate.
True to you.
Yes, that's right.
All right.
So, but no, man, it was interesting because growing up, I always say this, man. I feel like God always had his hand on me before I had him.
Mm.
So I think a lot of people have like this wild and reckless kind of story about how they were before they had the Holy Spirit. We didn't grow up in church. We didn't pray. We didn't do hymns. I didn't know anything about that. But I always had this inkling like I should. And so because of that, I was a good kid. Okay. Now that didn't mean I had problems. I had issues like every other kid did, but I was good. I was terrified of being bad.
Yeah.
I'd tell on you and me, Yeah. And so what that means is for a lot of my childhood, I was that high performer, never failed at anything. Um, I was a band geek, played a lot of music. I was a beat maker, musician, high school marching band, drum major.
Popping 90s out
bro,
there.
I was out there holding 90s all day. I throw them right now if my knees weren't rusty. So all that to say, man, I kind of grew up with this this world in our family. We kind of grew up with this worldview that if you just do good things will happen to you. Very pluralistic home. It was
like
God
karma almost?
It was like not. I mean, I wouldn't even make it that spiritual. It was really just kind of like be decent. It's just be decent.
So discipline and integrity, not so much morality, but
because what do you measure morality against? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it was like follow the rules.
Yeah.
Mom says don't do it, we don't do that, and that's kind of where my space was. And I always say that it was kind of like God fearing, but not God knowing. You know what I mean? So like we didn't pray to God, but there was an awareness, but we would just as easily listen to the radio and like listen to the horoscopes on the way to school in the morning. You know what I'm saying? Like it was just like it was whatever was out there.
Yeah.
So here was the turning point for me. In high school, when I was 15 years old, I met my wife. And this is really the formative years for me because she wasn't allowed to date. Her father is retired first sergeant. And so there was a lot about her family dynamics is very similar to mine. She was born overseas, lived stateside. We kind of landed at the same high school. And when it came time to take her to a dance one day, I wanted to take her to, I think it was like a homecoming dance or something like that. She was like, I can't do dances. I can't do boys. And I said, why not? She said, my dad won't let me do it. I said, well, let me ask him. Put on a nice little suit, the only little suit I had. Called him up, made an appointment, stopped by the house, introduced myself, and just said, hey, listen, my name is Ryan. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I'm still a virgin. My goal is to be a police officer when I grow up. I ran into your daughter at school. I'd love to take her to a dance. And I said, you tell me what time to have her back. I'll have her back an hour sooner. And we talked and everything was cool. And he was like, hey, listen, she ain't dating. She can't date. You can take it to dance. And he says, from this moment forward, the ball is in your court. That's what he said. That was the last thing he said to me, is the ball is in your court. And we kind of joked about it because when we finally got married, that was my speech that I said. I said, a couple years ago, you told me the ball was on my court. I feel like I just made the winning shot.
Bowling.
That's it. So here's why that was important. Because she couldn't date, there was really only two ways I could see her: at school and at church. So her parents would come by on Sundays. They'd pick me up, and I'd jump in the car, and I'd go to church with her and her family. And after church, we would eat. My wife is biracial; she's Black and Korean, so big Korean community is rice and kimchi every Sunday, and then get in the car, they take me back home. And that was a rhythm for years on Sunday. That was the first exposure I had to church. And I wasn't going because of Jesus. I was going because his daughter was there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to know her. But eventually being in that environment, I found a biblical story that explained the carnal feelings that I was like, the stories I was telling myself, right?
Yeah.
I would grow up. I was afraid to tell people I didn't go to church. What kid has that, right? I would lie to tell people I was a Baptist. I didn't even know what a Baptist was. I wasn't even baptized. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I felt like I had to belong to some sort of spiritual space, and I didn't know what it was called at the time. And the real impetus for this, man, my wife and I, when we started dating seriously, I think we were about 16 years old. She looked at me, she says, hey, look, you serious about this? I said, yes. You serious about us? I said, yeah. She's like, okay, so couple rules. I get to be a stay-at-home mom. I said, check, I'm gonna be rich anyway. What else you got? Just two, you need to have a better relationship with Jesus. I said, I never heard of the guy, but I'll find him. Not even joking. And when you look at the story of our life and how God has set us up, she's been a stay-at-home mom now for 16 years. I became a pastor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like she prophetically spoke over our future at that moment in time. She saw something in me that I certainly didn't see at the time, but I'm beginning to see even more of that fruit today. So that's really the genesis of it, was planted in the early years of our relationship as kids in high school. And like I said, I was a good kid, so I don't have a whole list of like I was getting into trouble.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a solid foundation to which to point to that could explain why or what or how, So I was kind of aimless in that space.
I get it. Out of all that, I feel like I'm almost pushed to highlight something. You met a young lady who pushed you to be greater, who pushed you to be more, who you said saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself. What you didn't say is you found a girl on IG and she was a model. And she was, twerking and doing all these other things, right? And so for the young men and the young women out there who are watching this, gravitate towards individuals who pull you to be a better version of yourself. And I'll just leave it at that. Leave it at that. So you meet your future wife, and she gives you, basically she lays down the law. This is what it is, this is what it ain't. If you want it, get in. If not, hit the road.
That's it.
So you wanted to be a police officer, and I just have this feeling that there's a lot of exposure that you're preparing to experience that is the opposite of this blueprint that she's given you.
Yeah.
So how does that look?
Yeah, no, it's 100% what it is, man. Like law enforcement is a crazy place to make money. I always tell people, you're gonna swim through a cesspool of other people's sin and expect to come out clean and unaffected, and it just doesn't happen.
Wow.
You see the worst parts of humanity. You see the worst parts of yourself sometimes, and I've absolutely believe that how I was introduced to my wife and the things that we were able to do as kids in terms of like growing together, me going to church and being spiritually formed in that season with her prepared us for what was coming, because law enforcement was rough, you know. And it's I always tell people I got paid very little money to get shot at. I'm afraid of a lot of things, but a conversation ain't one of them. Uh, so, I would really kind of say one of the things that I really benefited from was being in law enforcement in that city. Hampton PD, where I started my career, was phenomenal. And I had started as a teen police officer, right? So they had like these summer camps. Most kids are out playing video games every summer. I went to the police department.
Wow.
And then after that, I became a police explorer. And then in college, I became a police cadet, and then I became a police officer. I'd been in an agency for years, and so that was a part of the formation too. Um, but man, my first night on patrol, I got shot at.
First night.
First night.
As a student or like
No,
as
I was full fledged, badge wearing. I'm out trying to save the world. Like, man, this is it. Got shot at. And the young man is now on the other side of eternity. Uh, and it was wild for me in the moment, because I had been preparing. I felt like my whole life for that. That first night of patrol, I had a field training by myself, and to almost be taken out by someone who looked like me was wild. And I remember early on, I was like, but I'm trying to help. I'm trying to do the right thing. People didn't care. And then I think the biggest challenge is you kind of get this sense that everything that you're trying to do to help is fruitless.
Mm.
And so that's why I think you see a lot of police officers are full of trauma and depression.
Wow.
I think that's why they lose hope.
Yeah.
And for my wife and I wish that first night was the only one, but it wasn't. There were multiple situations and times where I almost lost my life in a line of duty. Of course, I have an appetite for doing some of the most dangerous things. And so, I worked some various assignments. I was a gang intelligence unit liaison. I worked robbery task force. I did a lot of undercover or plainclothes assignments, and that brought more danger.
Yeah.
And, we got to this point where my wife was pregnant with our kids after years of trying, and I went to work one night. She was a police dispatcher.
Mm.
She became a dispatcher after I became a police officer, and it was the night I got closest to
It being over.
Yeah. And there was a policy back then that you can't, like, if your spouse is on the radio and you're on the road, your spouse can't be your dispatcher, just in case something happened. Right? So they
Right.
don't want husband and wives interacting like that. So she would always work fire if I was working PD that night, or she'd do 911 dispatch or something like that.
Yeah.
Somehow I think someone took a break and they just needed her to sit in, and it had been quiet, nothing been going on that night. So she was on the radio and I didn't know it. They just swapped seats for a minute. And it was in that moment where I found myself in the middle of a crazy pursuit, shooting. Gentleman was about a block away from where I was, engaged in a pretty um, aggressive gun battle with another young man. And I pulled up. I was driving an unmarked patrol car. I was working gang intel at the time. I saw him. He saw me. Turned into a little foot chase. He jumped into a car, turned into a vehicle pursuit.
Mm.
All I can remember from this pursuit is screaming.
You
screaming the whole time. Shots fired! Shots fired! You know, I'm driving through the city, eastbound here. That's all I can remember. That and the sound of my wife's voice on the radio.
Wow.
As I'm screaming, shots fired, shots fired. She's shots fired. Officer needs assistance. Eastbound Pembroke Avenue. She's doing her job. She's in the zone. I am panicking. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And fortunately, we were able to get stopped, and it was this moment where it was myself and this gentleman before backup showed up, and he had a firearm. Obviously, I had mine, and I remember just time standing still. They tell you when you get in these situations, there's like time distortion and auditory exclusion and dry mouth and tunnel vision. You get all of these different things, and it's just this distortion. And I remember in that moment having a conversation with the Lord, and I was like, I'm about to have to take this man's life. I just need to know if it's okay.
Mm.
Like, is my soul gonna be okay on the other side of this shooting? Because I'm about to do what I got to do.
Yeah.
And by the grace of God, what I didn't know was that apparently I was pretty effective on the communication side of things. had given effective direction to travel, the license plate from the vehicle, and my guys were super sharp. They went to where the car was registered because we were moving in that direction. So I didn't see it. I was what we call condition black. I was I wasn't in the game no more. I was on autopilot.
Yeah.
But unbeknownst to me, they were there on perimeter, waiting not far away. And before I had to do what I thought I was going to have to do, they were able to remove the firearm from his hand.
Wow.
And take him into custody. It was aggressive, but it wasn't fatal.
Yeah.
You know, they were able to do what they needed to do, and both of us got to walk away from that situation without taking a life, which I thought was very important. And I never forget putting him in the back of the squad car. He looked at me and he said, "Man, thank you for not killing me."
Wow.
You know, and I think a lot of police officers in that situation are angry. I was grateful. We hugged. I'm not even lying to you, brother. We hugged.
Yeah.
And first person I called was my wife. You know, I'm sitting at the back of the squad car. I'm hyperventilating. I said, "Hey, baby, just so you know, I'm good. I'm okay. You know, we gonna make it." And she said, "Yeah, I know. You well trained. We'll talk about it tonight when you get home."
Wow.
Good job.
Stone cold.
Cold, man.
That's exactly the same demeanor she had when she said, "Listen, I'm staying at home.
You gonna get to know Jesus.
You gonna get to know Jesus."
My wife has always been a thug like that. Man. I love it. I love it.
So, as you're telling that story, I recognize this undertone, and I don't want it to be passed over, because I believe it's something critical in there for the viewers and the listeners, and it's this: you have a plan, you're working towards this goal, you're working towards this objective, and all of a sudden it hits the proverbial fan. And you used the term there. You said that officers now deal with depression and trauma.
Yep.
And end up being hopeless.
Yes.
How would you navigate, or how would you help someone walk through the feeling, officer or not? Because people around the world are dealing with trauma. Yeah. They're dealing with depression, and they're dealing with being hopeless. But from your experience, how would you walk someone through coming out of that to find hope?
It's impossible to maintain those feelings if you're practicing gratitude. And I think the biggest thing for a lot of people who find themselves in seasons of hopelessness and anxiousness, right? It's because they're so focused on their problems or things that they can't control that, you know, that external pressure is outside of their control. And the thing that can help, right, doesn't solve it, but the thing that can help is to lift your eyes up off the problems towards a promise. Focus on what you're grateful for, what is working, what is within your control. Right? I would say don't focus on the outcomes, focus on the output. So not what's going to happen, but what can you do next is the best thing to do it. I heard somebody say it today that I don't know if the words are exactly perfect, but they said the antidote.
Give me the rhyme version.
The antidote for grief is action. And a lot of times what happens is we find ourselves in these grieving moments and we just sit in it. And you have to get up and you got to move. You got to take the next step and the next step and the next step. I think we think that feeling better will allow us to move, not recognizing that taking the next step is what causes us to feel better.
That's so good.
You know, and so that's really what it is. And I think, man, for me, I was just surrounded by good people. I didn't share this organically, didn't come up, but in the process of building my career, man, God surrounded me with some really, really dope people.
Yeah.
And I have to shout out one of my partners. His name is Scott. We were both young police officers trying to figure it out together, but he was filled with the Holy Spirit early on. And so there was this moment one night, man, we got called to this alarm. It was a burglary in progress. And we were the only two officers available. The alarm company had called in. They were watching on video. There were these perpetrators inside the business, and we had to go in and handle business.
It's about to go down.
Bro, it's about to go. So we're in the parking lot, and we pull in, no lights on, and we run to a back door where we know entry had been made, and we're getting ready to go in and clear this business and deal with whatever's on the other side of this door.
Just you two.
Just the two of us. And I'm number one on the stack. He's number two on the stack. And as we get ready to walk through that door, Scott grabs me by the back of my shoulder and he pulls me back. He says, "Wait a minute. I'm not making this up, bro." He said, "Wait a minute." I said, "What's up?" He said, "Before you go in there, I need to know that if something happens to you, you're gonna go to heaven. Bro, I promise you. I promise you. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, of course I'm going to heaven. I believe in Jesus. He said, I know you believe in Jesus, but I don't know if you know him. He says, like for real, bro. And I said, what are we doing? Like, bro, we are armed. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is legit how this happened.
Bro,
He
I
says,
see this sports movie
bro,
and
I'm
it's like
telling you,
slow motion. The coach calls timeout. Y'all in the huddle.
yes,
Who's gonna take the shot?
bro.
So this is what's happening.
This is exactly what's happening.
All
And he
right.
says, let me pray for you. And so right there in the back of this building, alarms going off, people inside, guns in hand. He prays a really quick prayer. I'm repeating after him. It's a prayer of salvation, right? And he says, okay, promise me that after this, you gotta watch this movie with me. This weekend we gotta watch this movie. He had this DVD called A Case for Christ, which was a guy, I don't remember the full story, but I think he was like an atheist who, through his investigation of trying to disprove Christianity, became a Christian.
Okay.
Right? He said, you got to watch this movie, Case for Christ. I said, I'll watch it. I'm in it, bro.
But can we
I'm
go
with
do
it. We
this?
got to go handle business. And so shout out to Scott, man, because that was another pivotal moment. You know, I feel like my wife was like, she started the conversation, but people like Scott, like they're the catalyst for it.
Mm-hmm.
They take it to the next level. And we did. We visited church with him. He came over. We watched Case for Christ. You know,
Yeah.
like we did the things, and just over time, it became less of just I believe Jesus to like I follow Jesus. And I think there's a difference, right? Pastor Ross at Victory wrote the book 10 Qualities of a Disciple. He talks about the difference between a believer and a disciple.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to believe. I think it's really, really hard to follow.
Yeah.
And people like my wife and Scott, you know, they were the ones who helped me, because on the other side of a prayer like that, you're dealing with death constantly. You know, I've been shot at so many times, man. It's hard to describe the sound of a bullet flying past your ear this close.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to maintain faith when you're trying to do CPR on a 2-year-old person whose body is so broken. The anatomy is not in the right place. Like, you know, it's not. There's nothing there, right? And we have to do things like that and then go pull cars over.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then people wonder why police officers are so broken. It's trauma, and they don't know how to deal with it, and so they take it out on people next to them. So this is a big reason why trauma care is so important to me. It was a part of the ministry my wife and I led when we were still on staff, and it's a big part of the reason why even this weekend I'm heading to Nashville to help re-record the trauma recovery program with the team that started it in Nashville, because they want to roll it out worldwide for first responders, man. I want to help other people get free from spaces that God allowed me to walk out of unscathed, you know.
As you say that, I can't help but wonder, for people who are in environments, because you're explaining, you're telling stories, but you're giving us or painting a picture of your environment as an officer, and this is your work. However, there are people who are experiencing this and they're not getting paid for it. It's just what they call life. So how does one understand that resilience is being built through these trials, and how do they stay true to perseverance, to like push through, to not just give up? Because I feel like a lot of people make horrible decisions when they get to the point to say, nothing I can do, I give up, I quit, I'm just going to do it.
They do. It's called an affectoristic. We make short-term decisions based on our temporary discomfort without considering the long-term implications, and it's easy to quit. Resilience is something that a lot of people struggle with. It's something that I think I've just now really learned how to talk about effectively, but something that I've had. You know, there are 3 R's really: the ability to reset, to recover, and to re-engage. You know, and so sometimes when you find yourself in a situation, you got to pull back and reset. And you got to really sit back and think to yourself, like, what's happening? What's the story I'm telling myself about what's happening? What's it doing to me right now? You just got to kind of reset and turn a page and reapproach life differently, right? With a fresh set of eyes. And then you've got to make recovery and rest a priority, because the more time you give yourself to feel the things you're going to feel. Grief is a feeling we try to shut down.
Yep.
Loss are feelings we try to shut down. Pain, fear, we try to shut them down, and that doesn't work, right?
Because it's uncomfortable.
It is, and I get that, but what ends up happening is we exchange one discomfort for another discomfort.
Oh.
It's problem substitution. So we think
Okay.
we're escaping something, but all we're doing is choosing a different hard.
Yeah.
You're either going to choose to deal with the hard of processing those emotions or the hard of bottling them up. You know what I mean? You don't escape it. It finds you. And I always tell people, man, peace is nothing more than the space between battles.
Wow.
You always have to be postured and ready for fighting. And I think that the challenge is we spend so much of our time and energy preparing for physical fights and emotional fights. We neglect spiritual, that, we're two-legged stools in a three-legged stool world. We will not stand if there is no spiritual care, emotional care, physical care. Like, you have to be completely whole. And so resilience is your ability to reset, to recover, and then re-engage, right? After you've had a chance to look at life and get knocked down, how do you step back into this fight with a better plan to survive and to win and to thrive? And that's really what it is. Perseverance is a choice. It's not a destination. Right? It is one of those things that I think is not very well understood, because we're looking for immediate gratification, and so
we're conditioned for that, though.
We are 100%, 100%, and so this is where that renewing of the mind comes in, right? Where it's not so much about what we're conditioned for; it's like, what are we made for?
Yeah,
we are made for resilience. We are made to be overcomers. I love how someone like Paul, despite everything that he did and went through, is still God's chosen instrument.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's what we have to understand. If we say we believe what we say we believe, then that means we have to go through some things to get to some things. And so there's no promise that everything's going to be okay. And that was really the lens I had. There was no promise that everything was going to be okay. There was no promise that I wasn't going to get hurt. No promise that I wasn't going to be taken out. Right. And so every day that God granted me the ability to go back out there and potentially save another life, I was grateful. I practiced gratitude. And I think a lot of people practice attitude.
Give me the distinction between the two.
Yeah, gratitude is saying what I'm thankful for. Attitude is saying what I'm angry about, what I'm frustrated about, what's not going my way, what I can't control. And we see this all the time in the field office. I saw the same thing at church.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not just for law enforcement. That was just the first lens I got to look through, but it's everywhere.
It's an attitude like everybody can get it.
Yeah, bro, I'm telling you. And look, I'm a part of that. Like, let's be clear. Like, there were some days, right? But it had nothing to do with the public, had nothing to do with people. It had everything to do with me. So there were moments, there were days, man, where I'd be driving into work in a patrol car. Like, I wish somebody would today. I wish you would. Like, let's be right. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no halo here.
Yeah.
I had a lot of self-control, but I also had a lot of anger and frustration for years. And I didn't know what it was coming from. I didn't know how to deal with it. This is why I wrote the book. My whole book, when I wrote it, was dealing with the internal pressure that becomes somebody's external problem. How to untie a balloon, right? If you can find out how to release that internal pressure in a safe way without popping under pressure, you're golden. You stand out in this world, man. And I learned how to do that first as a hostage negotiator. That's really where it came from. You imagine walking into a situation like, hey, he's in there. He got people with him. He's armed. And you got to talk to him.
Yeah.
So fear, that can't show up. Self-doubt, that can't show up. You know what I mean? Like, I got to be compassionate. I have to sound likable to somebody I don't like. I have to connect with somebody that I would rather not connect with. Right? So you learn these self-control mechanisms in intense situations like that. And so I think for those of us who are struggling with perseverance and resilience, I think we have to kind of look back at the story of our life and ask ourselves, how many times have we avoided hard things to try to maintain comfort? Because for me, at least for my stories, the more hard things I've done and faced and overcome, the easier everything else becomes.
Yeah.
And I think, the antidote for adversity really is hardship.
That's good. That's good. So you said that you have this experience as a hostage negotiator, and I've up until this moment, I have the book. I'm on the book. Shout out. You know what I mean? But you said fear. You're in there.
Yeah.
Anger. you're in there.
Mm-hmm.
Resentment, you're in there. You know these things as a hostage negotiator. Walk me through how you didn't allow those things to hold you hostage, and how the viewers and the listeners, how can they practically walk out, maybe through your story or just advice, how can they walk out not allowing those things to hold them hostage?
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of goes back to what I said before, right? We're focused on outputs, not outcomes. And I think what we have to really understand is what happens in the mind when we're faced with really difficult circumstances. Most of us aren't dealing with what's happening. We're dealing with what we're telling ourselves about what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
We allow our minds to just go a thousand miles in one direction. And it's not that we're running from reality, we're running from possibility. And
Ooh.
so, as hostage negotiators, we can't go on this tangent of what happens if they pull the trigger, what happens if they don't listen, what happens if I fail. It's one sentence, and then the next sentence, and then the next sentence, and the next sentence. And hopefully, at the end of this, I've strung enough sentences together that allow this person to de-escalate, come out of their limbic brain into a prefrontal cortex mindset where they can rationalize and reasonably have a conversation and understand, oh, this is probably not the best way to solve this problem. And we're usually pretty good at doing that. And so, the average person, whatever you're facing, it really comes down to asking that critical question: what's the story I'm telling myself about what I'm dealing with? And if you're a mile down the road in hypothetical outcomes, you're not going to be able to take the next step because you're not looking where you're going. It's really easy to trip and stumble over a problem you're not looking at, right? We tend to look way out here, and this is kind of the opposite of what I said before, right? So we're talking about resilient mindset, and right when I said take your eyes off your problem and look at the promise, right? But when you're navigating it, when you're in the space right now, know what it is that you're facing.
Yeah.
Define and clarify that, so that when you do look at the promise, you know how to pray.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
there's balance with all of this, man. And so it's really just kind of, and that's probably about the cleanest way I can say it. Um, for an average person, accept that hard things are coming and that God might want to use you in it.
That's good.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and so if you can do that and say, okay, I'm going to be his chosen instrument in this particular point in time, my goal is not to complain. It's not attitude, it's gratitude. Thank you for choosing me. What's the next step?
Oh, that's good. That's
You
good.
know?
And you said something about defining that obstacle, and I heard it once. Is it's impossible to defeat something that you are unwilling to define.
Oh, that's good.
So if you can't name the
Mhm.
enemy,
Yeah,
you just punch in air,
that's it. Mhm.
not winning that fight.
Yeah.
So you're talking about these narratives that
Mhm.
that people are writing,
Mhm.
right? I believe you said that they're not dealing with the reality; they're dealing with the possibilities.
Yes.
So how did walking with Christ help you almost write a better narrative, write a
Mhm.
better story, help you deal more in the reality?
Yeah, I know how the story ends.
Ooh,
You know what I mean?
boom.
I know how the story is. And that's the thing. I think some people are afraid to go through the process to get to the end of the story. And I'm not. And I think that's a bit of a mindset hack that a lot of police officers have, right? Because the day we do our swearing in, it's known, or at least kind of known and understood what this process means, right?
Mhm.
And so we've already committed to doing whatever it takes, right? And for me, it was like, if I have to lose my life to protect somebody I don't know, so be it.
Wow.
I know how this ends already. Um, I think the process of doing that, though, when the people you're doing that for maybe don't receive it, or you've been overexposed to trauma, I think that narrative shifts. And I think this is why a lot of police officers in their first and second year don't look the way they look a little bit later,
Yeah.
right? They become a little jaded, um, which is a whole nother conversation we need to talk about. But for me, man, I think what kept me in that was just this understanding that for me, I was locked into the end. And I think I told you before, even as a kid, my biggest fear was getting in trouble. It was, so I have a Romans mindset. I know at one point I'm gonna have to kneel and confess and give an account of my life. I'm terrified of what that conversation is gonna look like.
Right.
And so I'm always, every decision I make is long term oriented. And so for me, that's where that was. Funny side note, right? I remember when I was young, early on in the police department, I had to take a polygraph. Had to take a lie detector test.
As a like sworn in officer, or
I
as when you
wasn't
were a teen?
both. I've had to do a number of polygraphs. So you do them when you get hired as a cadet, hired as a police officer. Anytime you do like a special operations assignment where you might potentially um, have to make some critical decisions and they want to reevaluate, you do another psychological exam. You might do another polygraph. So I've done a number of them.
Yeah.
But this one in particular, when I was young, I think this is when I was a cadet. I was 19 years old, applying for this full-time role in the police department. And there's this questionnaire they ask all these questions, like, um, when's the last time you used drugs? When the last time you drank alcohol? How much have you ever stolen? And for me, it's all the way down. It's like none, never, ever, don't do it. And the polygraph examiner, they read the questions before they put you on the machine, and he's kind of looking like, hey man, listen, if you really want this job, you got to be honest, because like it's okay to have a couple of these boxes checked. We're not looking for perfection. He said, but you can't just come in here and lie.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. He said, so which one of these you want to change? I was like, I don't want to change anything. That's what it is. And he was like, you've never drank alcohol ever? I said, oh no, I'm good. Never tried it? No. Never taken anything. And he got upset, like legitimately upset. He started cussing at me. He said, what are you, a Boy Scout?
Wow.
I said, nah, I never tried that. I never tried that, but I definitely ain't tried that stuff either. And passed the polygraph. And I think what was interesting to me about that was I was surprised going into that, recognizing how many good guys and gals had done some of the things that I had never done.
Wow.
And it wasn't because they were bad people. It's because they were people, And I think we have to recognize that, man, we all have different paths, different walks, and different experiences. And God can use all of that.
None of it is discounted.
None of it is discounted. He uses all of it, right? Because of what you did and went through, you're going to be able to connect with somebody on the street different than me. You're going to be able to have a conversation with a young man who's stuck between good choices and bad choices better than I can, right? I look like a Hollywood movie, right? I never tried nothing bad. I married my high school sweetheart. We got 4 kids. I became a pastor. Like it's a Hallmark episode, right? You know what I'm saying? Like it's hard to talk to people.
It ain't even enough drama in that for Oprah, bro.
Right. You know what I'm saying? But we've had, our experiences on the other side, man. We've worn a lot of hats. I've done special operations work. I've worked with our military. We've kicked in doors. I've negotiation, worked with the alphabet agencies, hostage negotiator, forensics, special victims detective, burglary detective. Left all of that stuff, went into ministry, served on 2 state task forces, did legislative work, ran an anti-human trafficking organization, started a company, right? So I've done other things.
I told you, bro. I told you,
I've done a
Forrest
lot
Gump,
of things.
man.
He's so silly, So I'm grateful that God keeps elevating me into different seasons of life where I get to really kind of help other people be great and just serve in different capacities.
Okay. So as you say that, I want to go back on something you said before, is not looking at the problems, but looking at the promise.
Yeah.
So as you look at the promise, where do you feel the Lord is leading you now? That you know him, you've had these experiences, you've been a pastor, it's like you are exactly what Alicia told you to be.
Yeah.
And that's why your head don't have no gashes on it, because she hadn't had to go upside it. But what's the promise? What do you believe that is?
I'm still figuring it out. And I can say that confidently, man. I think I've tried to put words in God's mouth for a while in this. But I couldn't tell you last year that I'd be here. You know what I mean? I did not know that the story would be where it's at in this chapter of my life. And I think that's because I live life like this.
Yeah.
And if God says, here's what I want you to do, tomorrow I needed to change it all, I would change it all. And I think a lot of people hang on like this. And I'm along for the ride, man. This time last year, I was on staff at my 3rd church as an executive pastor, running my business on the side. Now we've got multiple Fortune 50 clients on 4 continents serving, in my company, which is scaling exponentially larger than I even can explain or define. We serve 805,000 people on our social media channels every day, with helping them get free from interpersonal conflict challenges. And I don't know how it's supposed to end. And so for me, man, I'm really just kind of taking this a day at a time. Obviously, there has to be some forethought.
Yeah.
I know that I know that I know that God has called me to um, to serve people, help people, protect people in this space of interpersonal conflict management. And I think what that looks like is just continuing to create services and products that helps people get honest with themselves about themselves, to get healthy and whole so that they can do what it is that they're supposed to do. I feel like the role I serve in people's lives is a catalyst.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you are supposed to build something, if you're supposed to build something, you're supposed to build something, and none of those things are connected, that's okay. You got to get healthy and whole first. And the platform and the services we're creating are allowing people to do that
I
so
got it.
that they can be great.
Yeah.
So I think, I can tell you my dream, what I said
Put
was,
it out there.
yeah, the vision for this whole thing was to build the preeminent conflict strategy firm on the planet. That was the dream.
Named.
Well, it's Conflictish, right? That's what we're working with right now. But bigger than that, I think really what it comes down to is whenever anyone is in trouble, when they have a problem too big to solve, or a problem that they don't know how to solve, that we would be the first place anyone thought to call for guidance. That's really the thought behind what we're doing as a conflict strategy firm. And so far, man, we've gotten calls from people I can't even explain. We were talking earlier about jumping into pastoral ministry and not feeling qualified, equipped enough to do it. There are phone calls from people I look up to, and they're asking me for advice and wisdom. So, and I recognize that I recognize where my wisdom ends and where the Lord's begins.
Yeah.
And so I think together we make a formidable team, and I'm just blessed that He's allowed me to operate on His behalf. And so for as long as He'll keep me, I'm going to try to be His instrument. And hopefully at some point by the end of this journey, I'll tell you exactly where I'm going when I get there.
I think that's important because I believe that so many times in people's lives, we write these narratives, as we said, that we almost feel embarrassed that we have this idea that we're unqualified.
Yeah.
But what I hear you saying is, and it goes with this old saying, but I feel like you know that you're walking in your calling. And as you take each step, He's qualifying you step by step. And I feel like that's where you are.
Yep.
And that's where you're operating. And you said story. And as we began this, we were talking about not the art of story, but the power in story. And you mentioned your book. So how can they find your book? How can they find Conflictish? How can they reach out to the Ryan Dunlap? What's your middle name?
Marshall.
Ryan M. Dunlap. Hold on. On your book, is it Ryan M?
I think it is. I don't think it's Ryan Marshall. I think it's Ryan M.
Ryan M. Dunlap. It's got to be. It's like Esquire. I was just joking. But no, how can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, we're everywhere. So one of the things that really kind of propelled us was our daily social media videos. And so Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Conflictish everywhere. That's Conflict ISH. Because we help people deal with conflict issues, all the ish you do that contributes to conflict, tension, and misunderstanding. And then the book is available wherever books are sold. So, whatever your favorite book retailer is, you can find a copy of it. It's called How to Untie a Balloon, a negotiator's guide to avoid popping under pressure. And really that's what it is, right? We're taking a lot of hostage negotiation principles from the interrogation room into the boardroom and the living room to help people learn how to regulate themselves so they can regulate their circumstances better.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I believe you said it earlier. It is the culmination of all of these life experiences that you have that has allowed you to walk in your calling. So when you were in the thick of it, getting shot at, getting prayed over, almost missing it because you didn't know Jesus, right? But it's like a pot of all these things that stunk in the moment, but it's allowing you to walk freely in who you were called to be now. So that's that promise vision, and I love it. So right here, as we close out, I have this soapbox.
Yeah.
The soapbox, and I know you know what soap is.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, soap, SOAP. We're not talking about bathing two grown men. That's not where we are right now. What we're talking about is a study habit or practice for reading scripture. SOAP, scripture, observation, application, and prayer. So in this soapbox or in the soap vault, which is really a soap box. It looks like an ammunition box, but literally this was filled with like 6 bars of soap. So
I'm
it
okay
is.
with the ammunition box though.
So this is a soap box. I put 100 of my favorite Bible verses. And so what we're going to do is to give people an example of how the word speaks to you and how it speaks through you. You're going to reach in the box. You're going to take out one of these verses and we're going to do some live soap.
I love it.
All right.
Let's do it.
Don't be looking, bro.
No.
I can't take you nowhere to play bingo with me, man.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Psalms 34:17. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles.
What's the reservation there?
For me, cry out. Believe it or not, it's the first thing. One of the challenges that I think a lot of us have, especially men, is that we don't cry out. Men don't cry. We don't ask for help. We ask not, but we have not because we ask not, right? And so this whole idea of knocking, the door should be open to you, right? I think it's important to know that the Lord will hear, but we have to reach out. And I think that's what stands out most to me, right? The righteous cry out. That righteousness is not pretending that everything is okay. It's being okay with not being okay, asking for help when it exceeds your ability, and then you'll be heard and be delivered.
Yes, but I feel like just in the spirit, I think some people are saying, I want to, but I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And there's a scripture in Revelation that says, even when you don't know what to say, it's those groanings, those silent, the silent mourning, right? That in heaven, he's collecting all of those.
Yeah.
And it's like a bowl filled with incense. And that means that even when you don't know what to say, even when it's just a sob, even when it's just to help me, it's still a pleasant aroma to him
100%.
in heaven. So even when you don't know what to say, just say, I need help.
Yeah. Or listen, I don't think you have to say anything. That's why it says cry out.
Cry out.
It doesn't say talk out. It doesn't say speak out. It doesn't say explain out. My daughter, right before I came here, my daughter and I've got 2 daughters, they're both 16, but one of them was saying to me, she was just like, I feel like it's hard for me to pray to God because I feel like my prayers are like too tedious, like too like boring for him. And so sometimes I just cry. And I said, sometimes that's enough.
Absolutely.
We literally just had this conversation. I said, sometimes that's enough. You don't have to say the right words. You can just focus on crying, understanding that he will interpret and hear that, and he'll deliver you from it.
So it's not the words of the mouth, it's the posture of the heart.
Because that's what God looks at.
Come on.
Yeah.
I love it. So we gave some little tips there, but what's the practical application of this verse?
There's this thing, man, where I will say, I think a lot of times we carry a lot because we want to look strong. But when you carry too much, we confuse looking strong for being hard. We become hardened. And I think when we hang on to the things that we're not supposed to, when we don't take our problems and issues to the altar, it alters our walk.
Ooh, wow. One more time for those. They ain't hear you in the back.
So when you don't put those things before the Lord, when you carry the things that you're not supposed to carry, when you don't leave your problems at the altar, it can alter your walk.
Yeah.
And so I think it's very important for us to feel confident in our ability to go to the Lord with our issues, to cry out, to ask for help, and to not feel like you have to be strong and unintentionally become hardened and flexible.
Yeah. So the prayer is that people would have a heart of submission so that they don't feel like they're walking this thing called life alone.
Yeah.
Man, I appreciate your time, Ryan. As always, it's been informative, but it's also been revealing. Like I love just having a conversation with you, man. We can talk to each other. We can call each other with the intent of having a 2-minute conversation.
That's right.
And it's like 2 hours later.
That's right.
But man, I appreciate you donating your time to come on this and share your story, share your walk, share your insights, and hopefully inspire hope into people. So as you're watching this, if it's on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. Go ahead and hit the notification button. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, on Apple, on iHeart. Make sure you also like and subscribe so you don't miss any of these stories that really are here to help inspire you and to give you hope. So I'm your host, Trey Battle. This is Ryan Dunlap saying, this is Godspeed, and for you, Godspeed. God bless.